Hi, I'm RC from the Mountaintop Joiner Shop, and this here is what I call my signature wall hanging mirror. To date, it's one of my favorite things I've ever built, and I did so without the use of drawings, computer models, or mock-ups. I just made my decisions and started cutting material. And at the most basic level, all design is just a series of decisions. Easy, right? Well, no, those kind of decisions can actually be really hard. But what if there were a set of guidelines to follow, a way of thinking about design that makes those decisions a little bit easier? Over the course of my career as a studio furniture maker, I've almost by accident come up with a series of guidelines that help me make tough design decisions. And those guidelines have given me the confidence to build stuff like this on the fly. Whether you use drawings, computer models, mock-ups, or fly by the seat of your pants like I do, these guidelines can help you too. This video is the introduction to a whole series I'll be doing about these guidelines, which I call the 5 Ps of decorative design. Stick around to learn more. Compared to building furniture following an existing example or plans, designing original work may appear to some to be a nebulous soft science, or some near magical talent that some people are born with and others aren't. I hope to dispel that myth to some degree by showing that designing furniture doesn't have to be the galaxy-brained activity that it is sometimes made out to be, but rather an adherence to certain basic principles, many of which were hammered out centuries ago by our furniture and cabinet-making predecessors. In the course of my career as a furniture designer and maker, I've spent a great deal of time studying furniture design in books and magazines, as well as traveling around the US and Europe, taking in every decorative arts museum, every flea market, every antique store, furniture store, and furnished historic residence that I could find. I've observed, analyzed, and examined more pieces of furniture, both exemplary and shabby, than I can even begin to recount. During that time, I also designed and built a lot of furniture from scratch. Not surprisingly, my early efforts were pedestrian at best. Some were a little awkward even. No one who is new to design should expect any different. If you think you're going to pick up an electric guitar and sound like Eddie Van Halen right from the start, you're going to be disappointed. That said, in the course of my efforts, I found myself adhering to certain design principles that dramatically improve my design sense, and that may shorten the learning curve for others, and that's what this video series is about. The 5 Ps of decorative design is a mnemonic device I came up with to describe design principles I'd come to apply almost any time I had a design decision to make. They are in no particular order: proportion, palette, projection, positioning, and preservation. Whether or not you can rattle them off when stopped on the street and given a pop quiz is wholly unimportant. I probably can't even do that. In fact, I have this thing called, what's that called? Forgetfulness. I tend to forget things. But what is important is understanding that these concepts, while not written in stone, can serve as a set of guide rails that can keep you on course during the development of a new design. Before I address each of these principles in detail, it is important to understand that they are in large part predicated upon having answered certain more practical questions first. These include, but are by no means limited to, what are the overall dimensions that are required? A piece often needs to fit into a certain space, or fit people ergonomically, or serve as storage for certain objects. The overall dimensions of a piece is where design starts off proportionally. What existing style is being called for, if any? What is the environment that the piece will occupy? Plopping a Danish modern piece in a room full of Queen Anne furniture or vice versa is tone deaf at best. Even if you're designing a wholly original piece, it is important that it plays well with its surroundings rather than sticking out like a sore thumb. Just as you typically wouldn't wear a tuxedo to a clown convention, you should take into account what else is in the room. You can also take cues from this environment when determining your materials palette, which I'll address later. What are the practical considerations? What does the stated budget allow for? You can't make an entire executive desk out of carved ebony on a tulip poplar budget unless, of course, you run and follow the law in some way. Does what you have in mind fall within the scope of your tooling and talents? Well, it's good to build your experience and try new things. Taking on a project that falls largely outside your skill set is a recipe for frustration. The same is true for a project requiring tools you don't own or don't have access to or don't have the budget to purchase. With all the above in mind, the rest of this video series will address the 5 principles that I find helpful when it comes to making design decisions that will hopefully give a piece life and make it pleasing to the eye. I'll use my signature wall mirror to illustrate many of these because I know with certainty how it was designed and I own the rights to its image. But you should be able to walk into any decorative arts museum and see these principles in action as well. Stay tuned. Now, if you like what you saw here, please hit like and subscribe. It would help me out a lot. Also, hit the little bell icon if you want to be notified whenever I release a new video. And if you didn't like what you saw here, keep it to yourself, pal. Or check out one of my other videos. You might like one of those. Thank you for watching.